Okay, I've already done the review on the Panzer IV by Monogram that I'm getting ready to start. And again, this is going to be one of my beginner series videos. So hopefully this will be helpful for any beginners. And I'm just going to just do some basic building skill sets and just kind of go through a little bit of detail each step, what I do to work on these particular steps, and hopefully offer up some helpful information. So without further ado, let's get started. The first steps are putting the wheels and suspension components together, and then putting those in the hull. We got a left side, we got a right side. So first thing we have to do is cut the parts from the sprue. Once we get them cut, kind of eyeball them, see what needs to be cleaned up. Now, after you cut these parts off, there's going to be a little portion of the sprue left. So there's a couple ways you can handle it. You can try and scrape it off with a knife. Okay, very carefully. Or you can sand it off with a sanding stick, which works a little bit better. And then you have to look for any flash, which in this case there is a bit of flash right here on the inner part of the wheel. There's a little tiny bit of flash right there. Right on that side right there. And then the wheels have a really sharp edge on the outside right here, so that needs to be taken care of. So for that, I'm going to use my bigger sanding stick and just kind of go around it like that and get it sanded down. And I'm going to use a smoother, because the flashes are, it's not really flash, it's more of just a sharp edge. Use this to knock it down so it looks more like a rubber wheel. So then after those, I'll have to cut all the wheels and do that. Then the next part will be the suspension arms. Now there are two sides. There's number 2 and number 3. Number 2 is for the left side, number 3 is for the right. So you need to watch for that kind of stuff. So I'm going to do number 2 since it's the left side and it's in the first section here. So I will cut one of these from the sprue. Okay. Then as you can see, there's flash around the edge here, a little bit of flash on the axles. So for the axles, I'm just going to take the side of my blade and scrape it smooth. Okay. Then on the ends, I'll do the same thing as before and just sand where that was attached to this the plastic runner. Okay, so I'm going to get all these parts cleaned up and then we can start assembling them. So I'll be back as soon as I get all this cut off. Okay, I've got all of the lower suspension parts, the wheels, the bogies, and the little clips that hold the wheels onto the bogie. I've got all those cut off the sprue, cleaned up. I've got them divided left and right because there is left and right. So the next part will be to clean up the hull and then install those parts. So I'm going to, just using my small sanding stick, I'm going to look for any flash or raised ridges, like right here on this fender. It's kind of got a weird lip, so I'm going to sand that down. And I'll check all the fenders, and then the mounting points right here for the side skirts. Some of that's got a little bit of flash, so I'm going to clean those up. Then once I get all that cleaned up, and then the little nubs where this was attached to a sprue, I'm going to get all those cleaned up. And then once I get all that cleaned up, then I can actually start installing the suspension parts. Okay, the hull is all cleaned up. I've got the rough edges smoothed out. So the next thing I want to do, and since I opted to use the, as I mentioned in the review, I opted to use the damaged side skirts, damaged shirtsen. I want to make this tank look like it's seen some action. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to use heat, and I'm going to bend the fenders a bit so as to make them look like, you know, they've gotten some damage from running into trees or buildings or whatever. So I have a candle here, and I'm going to carefully heat this plastic. Let it heat up a bit until I can bend it. And then when I do bend it, I'm going to use this eraser on this pencil because it's kind of blunt, so I don't leave any fingerprints, because if you get the plastic hot enough, you can leave a fingerprint on it. So I'm going to heat it up and bend this, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, I have used candle and heated the fender and bent it, and as you can see, the edges, the front edge there and then this edge, they have kind of a rounded look to them from the heat melting them. So what you need to do after doing that, or what I need to do, is I take my knife, and I use a knife instead of a sander just because I can get this curve, but you just drag it along the edge, get the little burrs off, and what it does is it resharpens that edge up. Now I've already done it on these two fenders here. These were kind of rounded from the heat as well, but now the edge is flat and sharp again. Okay, so you can model your battle damage with heat and then still be able to get that rounded edge down so it doesn't look goofy. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up on this, then I can start installing the suspension. Alright, so the next part is to assemble the suspension parts after they've all been cleaned up. And what that entails in this case: suspension, two parts of the wheels, and the retaining clip, so the wheels will rotate. Now normally you're not going to play with this thing probably, so the main reason I like the fact that the wheels will rotate is it makes it easier to paint the rubber if you do it by brush. So first you take your inner part and you take the little tiny clip, snap that on there, that holds it in place, and you take the outer part of the wheel, and using, in this case I'm using the Tamiya Extra Thin, and I'm just going to dab it right along the bottom, the seam, in there, squeeze it together, hold it for a few seconds. That's the nice thing about this to me extra thin, is it dries, cures really quickly. So you hold it, ta-da, your wheel is assembled and you're ready to move on to the other one. Now I've already assembled some of these parts, so making sure I have the hole facing the correct direction, I'm doing this side first, which is the right side of the vehicle, okay, because they are directional. These parts are asymmetric, so you have to make sure you put them in correctly. So you basically take this, stick it in like that, and then you take this part, and as per the instructions, move it where you can see. The only part that gets cement is the part that attaches right here. The ends do not. They just rest on the inside of the hull here. And it basically gives it a crude working suspension. So what I'll do is drop that part in there like that. Make sure it's bottomed out. And then take my Tamiya cement, dab some in there where the cement is supposed to go. Being careful not to get any where the pin or axle comes through the hull. And that is, make sure it's bottomed out so it has a little bit of springiness to it, and it's ready to go. So now all I have to do is complete that for the rest of the parts in the hull. And with that, step one is complete. The road wheels are all on with the suspension. They all move just ever so slightly for that nifty faux suspension business. So that finishes page one, step one. Now we can move on to the next part.